stolen. Every ounce of you is stolen.
In your opinion, how much does fitness help with that? Exercise help with that? Working out help with that?
The ultimate reason why I started working out is I was really struggling with anxiety and depression, and it was an outlet for me.
Your journey is not a fitness journey. Your journey is a recovery journey from abuse.
We're talking 1 in 4, 1 in 5 men that you cross every single day at the gym, at church, wherever it is, grocery store, has gone through something similar as me, but up to 90% have never said a word. There are men right now that are watching that haven't told their wives yet. They're terrified. I became a world champion. I was on covers of magazines, all of that drive. I wasn't able to celebrate anything. I won a world championship and I wasn't able to actually truly celebrate.
All of this becomes a facade.
Constant praise that I felt nothing.
Yeah.
And you're going to escape whatever was behind you and you're going to move forward. Micah LaCerte, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
And what a blessing to be here.
It is great to have you here, man. All right, first of all, look at this guy. Look at this guy. You're jacked.
Yeah.
But you've had a career of getting jacked and performing and competing. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, this is how a lot of people are going to know you, right?
Yeah.
They're going to know this bodybuilder extraordinaire. Tell me about how you got into that. What's that journey been?
Man, it started at the age of 18. I was 138 pounds at my height, almost 6 foot. And I'll tell you, I got into it, wanted to be the guys on covers of magazines and probably at that time, probably get some girlfriends and stuff like that. But the ultimate reason why I started working out is I was really struggling with anxiety and depression, and it was an outlet for me. I wanted to change my body, but it was also to protect what was going on inside.
Mm. You know, there can be a negative to that. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. There's also a positive to it, right? Which is that anxiety, depression, we know it's at an all-time high. It's almost become an epidemic in our culture right now. In your opinion, how much does fitness help with that? Exercise help with that? Working out help with that?
I think it's one of the most important things we can do. We know the research behind it too. It's 1.5 times more effective than any medication or counseling. Yeah. Not that I'm against either one of those two in certain situations, but to be able to work out and have that control, what we know about myokines and them being released with the contraction of a muscle and that breaking the brain barrier to then help with things like anxiety and depression, it's a game changer. Everybody should be working out regardless if you're dealing with anxiety or depression. You just feel better when you're working out.
Yeah, you do. We talked with Justin last week, and so that episode will be out before this one. For those of you who have not seen it, I encourage you to watch it. One of the things he talks about, is these different metrics and verticals, if you will, almost, right, in terms of the health and the food, in terms of the oxygenation in the blood through that cardio, steady state cardio, and then the zone 5 cardio, and then, of course, about the actual sleep part of it. Yeah. But the oxygenation part really stood out to me. I actually felt very convicted afterwards because I'm pretty good about my steady state cardio, right? But I really was only doing it for fat burn. Yeah. I just wish more people thought of it, this oxygenation of the blood, right? And what a difference it makes. Because I will tell you, when I've done it, I'm always like, it's amazing how different I feel, right, when you do this. But I just assume it's something else. And when you start to understand, he said it so well, people understand the what, they don't understand the why. Yeah. When you understand the why of how this affects your mind, how it affects your body, the blood flow, it's almost becomes embarrassing and shameful to not do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer. You have the opportunity every single day to make yourself better. Mm-hmm. And if you go and work out, you got the strength training side of things, the anaerobic side, and then the aerobic side, which Justin dives deep into of your HRVs, all the levels that are really, once you understand that data, and then you can apply it to your own body, those daily choices every single day, you're at optimal levels. And most people have no idea what optimal is. They're running in first gear on a highway and they can't go. Yes. They're like, man, my engine is about to explode. Yep. And I'm like, I understand how to get up to that sixth gear, and you're coasting. And that comes down to intentional choices every single day with your food, with your workouts, with your sleep, with your recovery, everything that makes up that whole entire day to then you be the best you can be.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Now, one thing he did not talk a lot about is really the anaerobic side, right? Yeah. And lifting. I mean, he mentions it. Clearly, you're very focused on that. He is too, by the way. Yeah. When you pat that guy, he's like a marble statue.
Yeah, he is.
But that's a big part of it too, right? How does that help in your process? especially with anxiety or depression. I become a big believer, pick something up heavy and put it back down. That's the way I describe working out. But to me, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Just the mental process of that, the repetition of it, the accomplishment that it takes, picking up something heavy and putting it back down. I'm sure it's more complicated than that. That's how I justify it to myself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going in the gym. My goals are probably a little bit closer to where your goals are. I really come from an aesthetic standpoint that still wants to perform.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of guys that are much more performance-based to begin with an aesthetic kind of being a bonus of that.
Yeah.
I came up again in the bodybuilding world, so there was a competition. I wanted to get on covers of magazines. There was an aesthetic, so the training is slightly different. But again, the reward is very equal in a lot of ways. I'm still going in and pounding weights. We're doing drop sets and supersets, and we're with our buddy or we're alone with music on and just jamming and getting that stress out, and those endorphins are screaming and going, man, I feel good. There's never been a time we went and worked out and we weren't feeling good later, going, man, I'm glad I had that workout.
That's right. You don't limp to the door, right? You walk out feeling like, I'm going to do this again tomorrow. This is so great. What do you listen to, by the way, when you're?
Man, I listen to worship music. I mean, I may be in a hardcore. I love hardcore bodybuilding gyms. It brings me back, 20 plus years of being in that grind and kind of grungy, and that type of individual too. That level of discipline that is just next level, and they're there. A lot of broken people in those walls, but they're going there to stay alive, to get better, and I really resonate with that.
That's so funny you say that. I feel like when I'm standing in the gym and I have my headphones on, I'm like, I bet you nobody else in this room is listening to VU worship.
All day, man,
right?
all day.
Long. Elevation worship, and they're listening to...
You got ooceans going on, and you're like, hardcore face.
Exactly, and you're in there, but there is something about, to me, connecting with the Creator while you're doing that, right? It's not a working out is not a rebellion. It's finding your actual your meaning, your purpose, being in alignment with what God has for you. At least in my experience.
My initial start was for sure based off of vanity reasons and insecurity, the stuff that I was struggling with. It transformed into glorifying the Lord in the decisions, in the being able to disciple other men and walking that. I didn't want to just say, hey, here's what you do. I want to live it every single day and showcase that and glorify him through that.
It's hard to stay in anything just based solely on vanity.
Yeah.
It really is.
It fizzles out.
Yeah.
It really does. Because then you get a wife, then you get kids, and there's no, you're like, well, why do I got to stay in shape now?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like the why is not there anymore. So if you have that foundational why that's so large that you won't quit, which is, hey, I want to make the biggest impact I can make and fulfill the purposes that he has in my life, that why is huge. You'll show up even on the days you don't feel like
it. For most people, I would say, you get the wife and it's like, now I'm going to slack off. In your case, that's not the case. You met your wife when it started. Yeah. She's more jacked than both of us.
Yeah, she is.
It's incredible. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's take a step into some heavier stuff here, right? Yeah. Your journey is not a fitness journey.
No.
Your journey is a recovery journey from abuse. And I'd like you to share a little bit about that.
So bring you back to a very young age of 5. This is where I always start the story because it's where my innocence was stolen. And so my mother and I, it was just my mother and I growing up. My real father and I have a great relationship now, but he wasn't in the picture at that time. As a young boy, you want a father. You realize there's not a father in the family and how important a dad is to be in a family or a male mentor that can play that role really strong. And I think my mother was really seeking that because she knew she couldn't play both parts. Mm-hmm. And this amazing family came into our lives again around the age of 5 for me. And the husband of this family, he was a deacon at the church. He was a guy that many men trusted. He was with kids a lot. He would come and pick me up after him and my mom built some trust and take me to the park. We'd go fishing, go play catch over the years and whatnot. But what I didn't know at the time, Ben, was that this is where the manipulation and the grooming would start. I didn't know as a little child. He was there being someone that I felt really truly loved me, but he unfortunately had a very evil desire and temptation of his long play with me. And so the sexual abuse would end up happening from the age of 5 to 15. Wow. And to bring people in it without going too far, it destroys you from the inside. And for men specifically that I speak with to now, it the shame is so gripping. The thought of ever sharing this with anyone, I would rather go jump off of a bridge than share what I went through at that particular point. And I got close to that many times, where I was like, I would look in the mirror and I couldn't even identify who I was anymore. It's stolen. Every ounce of you is stolen in those moments as the abuse continues to happen over and over and over again, all while he's teaching me about Jesus and God. The confusion as a little boy into teenage years of crying out to the Lord and going, why are you not protecting me? Why are you not, am I a bad kid? Like, what is going on here? Why is this happening to me? And really around the age of 15, my relationship was severed with the Lord. I was angry. I was like another father that just abandoned me, that didn't protect me. And then all while at home, a mother that was dealing with her own things that couldn't protect me either.
So much there. Let me start with this. You know, some people are gonna see this and say that who watch this podcast over and over will say he's a pretty judgmental guy. And the goal of this podcast is to shift in some way narratives that fit into the world right now, that fit into our society right now, that I think are just totally wrong. And people gloss over them like, no, it's fine. It's not a big deal. There's so many things that are such a big deal. So your story of abuse really actually begins with your father leaving the picture, right? We are living in a society that does not value fathers. It tells fathers you'll be better off living your own life. Your kids don't really need you. Your wife doesn't need you. Somebody else will be there, right, for those kids. And it's all going to be fine. And it's not fine, right? There are so many kids. I mean, the metrics are insane. I'm sure you know this, of the likelihood of abuse. It is the number one metric is fathers being out of the home.
It's astronomical.
It's unbelievable.
It's destructive. It's catastrophic.
Mm-hmm. And the predator in our society is constantly looking for the fatherless home.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is the easy, and it sounds
They're
like
not going to go to your home.
No.
You're too much of a threat to that. They are going to find the family that is weak and go in and start grooming and building trust. I'll take your kid for a while. I know how stressed you are, how much time you have. You know, oh, come to the camp with me. Yeah, look at all these kids that I'm taking care of.
Yeah. And you talked about him being in the church and him being a deacon. It's like you're hiding in plain sight, right? It's because in those cases, it's easy to build a reputation as someone who is safe and as someone who is a protector, someone that your mother can trust. And let's be honest, like, you know, when you are a single mom trying to deal with life, it is easy to want to, but people will believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
It's easy to want to believe, well, this is just a good man. Yeah. This is a man who wants to mentor my son or take care of my son. But for 10 years, this abuse was going on.
In multiple states.
How so?
He lived outside of Kansas City.
Okay.
He had moved to California, and then he moved up the coast further up. And anytime, my mom and I at the time are in a lot of friction.
Okay.
You know, as a child now looking at it, after you go through abuse, you're in a triggered state a lot, and especially if you're not feeling safe at home, you know, it's normal. The normal reaction that I was having was not feeling safe and not feeling protected. And so, again, when we went through the multiple divorces we did, from alcoholism, from one man to the other one being bipolar and abusive and suicidal type of things happening there, like, all she has left is this anchor over here, the anchor that has always been there when he needed it. But you got to remember, like, I'm not telling anybody.
Right.
You know, and I didn't tell anybody until a little later. I ended up telling my mother.
Right.
You know.
How old were you when you told her?
11.
11.
Yeah.
But how did he still have access to you then if you were 11? Because of the friction between you?
Yeah, there was friction. And, you know, I think one of the most difficult parts of the story for me came around that age, because now when you go through sexual abuse and you are the victim, it's incredibly important who you share this with and how they respond.
Okay.
My mother responded properly. She was very emotional. She was angry. She tried to comfort me, but she didn't take care of the pedophile. And she's alone. What do I do? How do I do this? She ends up calling him. I'm going to go to counseling. I won't do something like this ever again, type of thing, when we needed to go to authority.
Yeah.
And this man needed to be turned in because it was highly likely, and we find out later in the story, that he was molesting many children.
Of course.
And so,
it's never just one.
After the age of 15, I went through a really horrific period of time, and me and my mom are at wit's end, essentially, and I unfortunately was put back into the home of the predator.
How?
My mom made the choice.
Your mom chose to send you to live with him?
I had convinced her that I was bigger now and I'm stronger now and it wouldn't happen again.
Wow.
That's you can think about the complexity of that at that point. Almost like how unsafe the home must have been in that point to actually go to that level. And I love my mother.
Right.
This isn't about love, and I also had to go through forgiveness and understanding of what in the world is going on here, but also had to come to the realization that I am at such a triggered state and I feel so unsafe that felt safer at the point.
There's also something very confusing in what you're describing for
Yeah.
someone who has not been through this.
Yeah.
To say, well, how can you be a victim of abuse and you keep ending up around this person again? And you said you were put back in the home, but it sounds like you also advocated to go back into that home. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
Well, yeah, but it didn't come from a place of wanting the abuse
No,
anymore.
right.
It came from a place of I had
Desperation.
nowhere to go,
Yeah.
and thinking, like, I know what's happening here. A 4-year period had gone by. I'm bigger now. I'm stronger now. Like this has to end. I don't know it like I know it now, knowing that I was literally going back into hell.
Right.
You don't know it like that. And I'm just like, I'm bigger now, and I'm like the man of the house. So like I'm going to. And there was also another layer of this where he had a family with children, and I was like a big brother to them. So I yearned to like be in their lives as well.
That connection.
Correct. But at the time, it was really to be like, I can't be here anymore. It's got to be safer there.
So just to understand the timeline, the abuse began at 5.
Yes.
It sounds like it was relatively consistent until 11.
Yes. So 11, the physical molesting of me ended up happening in a home.
Okay.
When I was in the state of Washington. That's when it originally happened, but...
At 11?
Yeah, at 11. But 5 is when the grooming happens. So sexual abuse happens not always in the form of rape or something like that. It happens in the form of touching and just deeper stuff that I won't bring people into, but just the understanding of... I'm supposed to take showers with my dad, at a young age. So think about like...
So that was that one of those things that was happening?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're
it's
navigating.
not as physical, but it is making you more comfortable with inappropriate situations.
Correct. But I mean, it gets physical because it's like I'm going to teach you how to clean yourself.
Right.
I mean, so think about. I mean, my mind doesn't think like that to be able to hurt a child that way. But if that's what their goal is, then they're still getting off on something that is it's horrible. Children need to be protected at all costs.
Absolutely. But this is and to your point, this is a long period. This is a 6-year period of grooming you.
Yes.
So then the physical sexual abuse begins at 11.
Yes.
You told your mother at 11.
When I got back, yes.
Okay. So from that, I don't want to call it one incident, but from that particular incident, you told her afterwards.
I did.
She confronts him.
She does.
He says, I'll go to counseling. She doesn't go to authorities.
Correct.
And then a 4-year period goes by
Correct.
with no contact with him.
Well, little bits and pieces,
Okay.
but not a tremendous amount.
And no physical contact.
And there's no physical contact at this point. We're in different states at this point. And then 15, I'm on a train back to Washington State, and we kind of start the book that way. I'm bigger now. I'm stronger now. I'm on this train, thinking to myself, is this going to happen again? There's no way. I'm trying to convince myself there's no way this is going to happen. And ultimately, it's far worse when I get back. Yeah.
And Can you tell us some about that? I don't know how much you're comfortable with, obviously, but the book talks about this.
Yeah, yeah. And we don't go real deep, and there's a reason I don't go real deep, because the pedophile gets off of going really deep. You never write a book when you're in the state of trauma healing. You get healed and then write the book so that you're actually doing it for hope and freedom.
Right.
And so we wrote
not
it
for
that way.
salaciousness. Correct.
It's not a trauma dump.
Yeah. So when you went back at 15, you live with them.
Yeah.
Abuse begins again?
It does, soon after. So I'm there in the summertime, and when I was only supposed to be there for the summer. It was going to be a break, and it was an amazing summer. We don't have any abuse going on for a period of time there. So I'm thinking, okay,
it worked.
Yeah, it worked. Like, I'm good. I'm being the big brother. We're doing church stuff. We're doing a lot of amazing things, and then everything came with a price after that. Once the weather started changing and I made the choice with my mother, I was like, hey, I really love it here. Is it okay if I stay here? Absolutely. And then the abuse started massively at that point. And so I'll bring you a little bit into it. I was going to go to homecoming. I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had a little side job, but not a whole lot of money. But we got to pay. I got to chip in for the limousine. I got to chip in for, the flower for her, the whatnot. And there's a price. There's a price that's paid if he does something nice for me. And then it became much more aggressive. I'll bring you into one situation, and then we can kind of go deeper into what we need to here. But he comes in and he does his worst to me. And before he leaves that room, he says, tomorrow I need you to memorize the first 5 books of the Bible. Okay? This is the moment that my relationship with the Lord severs. Because I'm literally crying out while I'm going through the stages of becoming a man, and at the same time so shameful, such a, I'm dealing with insecurities. I'm thin at that point. I feel fragile. I feel weak, and I feel like I can't do anything, and that's what happens in all situations. Every man who comes out and shares will tell you the same story. Well, why didn't you just turn him in? Why didn't you? The devil's grip in that moment is so strong. It's like having just constraints on constantly. That's what happens. And so, long story short, I end up, my relationship, I started straying from the Lord. I'm like, you're not there for me. And I was just,
who
so
even
confused.
are you at this point?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, if you're this great God and I'm supposed to be a good kid, because I was taught the Lord, like, it was more of a disciplinary religion thing than it was a real relationship with Christ. And I'll tell you, it was brutal. It was a very difficult time to try to even go back there. And when I went through my own healing, I had to go back into the swamps of all of that to tend to those wounds. And there's moments where God brought me back to as I was healing, and I had to sit in that, man. Yeah. I had to sit in that. I had an amazing wife that created a safe place for me to be vulnerable in, because I still had to go and be the leader that I was in my community and within my job and my people. Yeah. But I needed to come home and still go through the healing, all while not talking to people about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who have been in your situation, especially with the church.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of abuse in religious situations. In a lot of ways, institutionalized religion becomes a breeding ground for this kind of thing.
It does.
For people who are going through that, you'll hear about people describe like they're severing their relationship with God over this stuff. Yeah. Jesus talks about the world speaks ill of me because of you, right? And he talks an awful lot about children and harming children, right? So there's no question that none of this is ever not just advocated for, but it is specifically condemned in the words of Jesus.
He understands the destruction that happens when you do something like that to a child. He talks about it in Matthew, Luke, about it'd be better to have the noose tied around your neck and the millstone drowned to the bottom of the sea than to hurt my kids. He understands how destructive it is that even a one instant can just hinder a child into a man for the rest of his life, or a girl into a woman the rest of her life. Yeah. How that affects the family, how that affects the relationship with him later, everything. That's why we have to protect kids.
Absolutely. You also talked about the grooming aspect. I think this is important because he spends so much time grooming you for those essentially 6 years before the first abuse takes place. Had this essential gap for the next 4 years. and then even gave another gap when you first came back, right? So, and you said that this guy had ultimately harmed numerous children, right?
Yeah, he ended up going to prison.
Okay.
So that's a little bit later in the story. We're still in the pocket of 15 and around that time, and we can dive into that whenever you want. But there was many children.
Right.
There was many children over the years.
And because there are many children, he obviously there's a playbook here.
There is.
Of how to do this, and part of that is so interesting was he was very good at not of taking his time.
Yeah.
Allowing you to come back, allowing you to feel secure in being there, allowing you to reach the point where you said, I want to stay. And the moment you had almost bought in and agreed, it was like, okay, and now here's the cost of having agreed. And then, so when you described like this horrific stuff having happened to you, and you were bigger, you were stronger, but then in the moment when this happens, you're no longer bigger and stronger.
I wasn't big and strong. I was 130 pounds, man.
Right.
You know, but in my mind, I'm bigger than the 11-year-old, and in 4 years have gone by.
Yeah.
I'm still a child.
Yeah. But it's a mental game too.
It is.
Even if you had been physically bigger and stronger.
It is.
Even if you were, the mental game is to make you feel small, right?
Correct.
To make you feel like you can't escape this and
Correct.
that you're under his authority.
That's right.
And
That's
that and part of that also goes back to the memorize these 5 books of the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? Because not only do I have control over your body, but I'm going to control what you think about and how you think.
Yeah, and why I'm doing this to begin with.
Right.
Because we don't want to have sex before marriage. I'm still teaching you.
Right. Was that something he would tell you?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a lot of pedophiles' game, especially if they're playing the church route.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, you know, they understand that that's another layer there that they can have stronghold on.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's isolation too, right?
It is. Yeah, it's isolation. I mean, I want to, for people out there that have gone through this, and I want you to understand fully how many men are struggling with this.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking 1 in 4, 1 in 5 men that you cross every single day at the gym, at church, wherever it is, grocery store, has gone through something similar as me, but up to 90% have never said a word. The ones that do take 21 years to disclose, 28 years to go into detail. There are men right now that are watching that haven't told their wives yet. They're terrified.
Yeah.
And it happened to them at 6 years old 3 times.
Yeah. And it's a shame factor.
It is.
It is, I think for men especially, it is also an emasculating thing,
It is.
right? Because how can I be a man, and how will you ever see me as a man if you know that this has happened to me? Well, before we get into what it takes to break out of it, tell us how this ends. So you're 15, now you're back in the situation. How long are you here, and how do you eventually break out of this?
So I come back, we're in the same situation. I tell her, you know, I went through what I went through.
Came back at
again.
what point?
15.
Still 15.
So 15. So I'm on the brink at this point. I'll bring you into also another moment. There was a pocket of time where your mind starts thinking extremely irrationally. So you're thinking it would be better to just take his life and my life all in one instant. He has boys. He has kids. Is he hurting his kids? This is what you're thinking, you know, as someone who is going through that. And so there was one night we're driving, and I'm thinking, I'm going to grab the wheel, and this is going to be it. And I'm going to pass away, but this man won't ever hurt me again or anyone else if he is hurting someone else. You know, and that's where your mind is. It's not playing on normal level anymore. You're in a constant heightened state of protection. You know, and so I get home. My mom and I, it feels safer again for a period of time, and then it goes back to kind of what it was. And at the age of 17, I got my first lifeline. I talk about lifelines in my book a lot.
Okay.
God, even though I was not walking right, God comes in and he gave me a lifeline in the form of a family. And this is the only part of the story now, because I get to talk about it now, I'm on the other side, that I still get so emotional in, is this family comes in, not knowing what I had gone through, because I'm not sharing this with anyone. And they loved me. And I got to see a family, a Christ-centered family, go through what discipline looked like, and when someone got in trouble, how they dealt with that, how they prayed together, how they loved one another. And they took me in and saved my life at that point. It was a really hard time for me. I lost everything. I couldn't play sports anymore. I was dealing with such panic attacks and anxiety. I was having to go to a hospital to go to school. I mean, and I'm hiding all of this. You know, and I'm just a young little man trying to figure out life and like, do I even want to be here anymore? And this family comes in. I end up following my buddy to college, and my second lifeline was in the form of chicken and dumbbells to go way back. So I always kind of lighten up the story there, but chicken and dumbbells and that bodybuilding lifestyle was not just something that I was doing, it was something that was saving me. It's a part of my DNA, it's a part of my identity now because it helped me through the hardest parts of my life. Every repetition was pain going out of me and becoming stronger. But I was still protecting the 5-year-old little boy inside of me. And that was the thing. And so I was never going to get to healing if that was still happening, but it was keeping me alive.
Yeah.
You know, and then I became a world champion. I was on covers of magazines, all of that drive, and something that really served me at the time ended up having to switch into something that was more purposeful because I wasn't able to celebrate anything. I won a world championship and I wasn't able to actually truly celebrate it. Getting on multiple covers of magazines and hundreds of fitness magazines, and it was just another hit.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
all these.
And it was you were also hiding.
I was.
Right. So all of this becomes a facade.
It
right?
does.
I'm building this great image of myself, and people see me as a success, or they see me as something that's almost enviable.
Yeah.
But you're like, nobody would actually envy if they knew.
Constant praise
if you knew.
that I felt nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I always bring people back to that story because there's so many successful people out there. We get the opportunity to work with so many leaders that have it all, boats and planes and everything else. And all I go is, who are you? What is it that happened to you, man? I still see the hollow, and that's the man I'm called to.
Yeah, that's so true. At this time, you're winning championships, and then you have to go back and revisit all this.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, so third lifeline, most important lifeline came into my life, and that was in the form of my wife. And God is pretty comical, right? So we meet on MySpace. You're around the age where you remember MySpace.
Oh, yes.
MySpace was the bomb, man.
It was.
And then
that it got co-opted by that CIA front called Facebook.
So MySpace and Vegas, we met at the Mr. Olympia. So big fitness expo, and we had just chatted a few times, but we were going to meet up and take a picture.
Yeah,
that's what we were going to do.
Okay.
And
we chatted on MySpace.
Yeah, just MySpace.
Okay.
We talked on the phone one time, but it was really friendship. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to go and hang out.
Lust.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all.
Yeah.
And so we met, and I mean, within minutes, I was like I felt something I had not felt before. I was like, you know, and I think I remember thinking early on, in that conversation that we had, which was supposed to just be a photo, ended up being I spent the entire weekend with her.
Wow.
And we never severed our we were never separated after that point, even up to today, which is over 18 years.
Wow.
And so,
I mean, look at this guy. How could you not?
Well, you're a good looking man.
But it's energy alignment, spiritual alignment, right?
Correct.
That's really what it's about.
This is what the game changer was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was attracted to her. She had amazing abs, amazing calves, the stuff we really dig when in the fitness space, because I look at her hands and she had calluses. I was like, man, you're my lady. Yeah. But there was something much, much deeper. And she asked me a question no other woman up to that date had ever asked me. And she said, do you have a relationship with Jesus? And I was like, whew. And I looked at her and I said, I know Jesus and I believe in God, but I'm angry at God. And she just held it. And we spent some time together, and the next day it resurfaced again, and she said, why are you angry at God? And in that moment, I did
ask you something before you
Go ahead.
Did anyone ever ask you that before?
No one ever. And it was almost God calling me and saying, I'm now giving you a gift and an opportunity. Yeah. And he did. He gave me the best blessing. And as we navigate this story, I mean, I love love. I love marriage, and I love my wife. Yeah. But God gave her to me, and vice versa. And so she asked me this question, and now I look back at it, and it's so incredibly rare what happens. She said, why are you angry at God? And I said, because I was sexually abused by a man who used God. If we know this space, if you know this space, how incredibly rare. And I had only told a few people. One was a detective when my abuser had gotten put in prison, my mother, and then one college girlfriend after I had told the detective. There was very few people that knew. And within 24 hours of meeting this woman, I tell her my hardest, most difficult thing to ever share. The thing that she could have been like, yuck, I don't want anything to do with you. The things that I was lying to myself about.
That's the
correct.
fear. Yeah.
You know, and for whatever reason, God gave me the courage to just say that. And she did such an amazing job of holding it, not trying to fix me. And she turned around and just said, I'm sorry for what you went through and how incredibly strong I was for sharing. And it changed the game for me. But I still wasn't ready to go deeper into the healing. I needed to get my relationship back with Christ, right? And then, you know, the actual healing would happen about 10 years ago.
Wow. You know, I think you said she didn't say yuck. In reality, I think very few people would ever respond that way. But the fear is that...
Brother, it's actually really high.
Is it really?
Yeah. The amount of men we get to talk to and hear their stories, it's probably 50-50.
That get rejected when they tell the story. So the fear
from
they have...
From mothers, from wives, from girlfriends, really? Yes.
So that fear is not just something that's in their head. This is a very real thing.
It's for real. And a lot of the times, it's just hard to hold. Like some people, it's like, it's taboo. Like we're not going to talk about that. But think what that would do to destroy our family if you were to share that. Think about that.
But think about the fact that how the double standard here, right? That's been created in our society. Because if you are a woman, and there are, like 1 in 6 women will experience abuse in their lifetime, tell that story. Nobody's saying yuck to them. Nobody's rejecting
Who was it? Let's take care of this.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Like it's so normalized to protect that, and to the phrase that became so popular during Me Too, right? Believe all women. So you make that accusation. And by the way, there are a lot of women who will tell their story. They're not rejected. There are a lot of women, this will be unpopular, who lie about that story, and they are not rejected, right? You can make that accusation with no evidence, and people are automatically supposed to not only assume it to be true, but to also treat you as if you are a victim, right? Regardless. So the idea that there's such a double standard that if a man shares this, he has such a high level of rejection, that's actually deeply disturbing.
Well, I mean, God has called me very specifically to be a strong, masculine, faith-centered man that's being a voice in a very dark place. And I really think it starts with vulnerability and how men in general, they just look at it as weakness and silence as strength because we've been taught that. So from a societal standpoint, like, I just truly believe that I am going to be a voice, and other men will stand next to me, and we're going to go move mountains with it and shift the entire outlook on this so that we can actually help the women and the children that these men are leading.
And you can't actually lead them if you're carrying this secret.
Absolutely not.
Right? You're carrying something so heavy and so dark, and it's so real that in order to pretend it's not there, everything about your life, your belief system has to be fake. Right? You're having to fake everything. And how can you possibly lead your family when you're fake?
There's always going to be a percentage of you that is still protecting the little boy inside of you. And that's the thing. It's like it's a weight that is so incredibly heavy until you get it off. And you just never feel free. And so you're constantly in this heightened state where how do you protect your wife and protect your kids when you're always constantly trying to protect yourself?
No, I think it's absolutely true. I know that in my life for a lot of years, there was so much of who I was and my failings that I felt that I had to hide and just live like in this protected, sheltered space. Got to build a facade over here so that everything looks good. And then the reality is I'll deal with my stuff privately, secretly, yes, because you feel rejected. And I will tell you that there is no more painful experience than to share that with the person you trust the most and have them weaponize it against you. Right? When you do and you've shared it, and one thing that becomes very painful is when it's drawn out of you, right? If you just tell me, and then when you start to share your deepest insecurities, vulnerabilities, failings, and someone turns around and uses that against you, it's like...
It's equal on both sides. If you are receiving this, then I just ask you to just hold it with them. Don't try to fix them, whatnot. They're telling you the hardest, most difficult thing of their entire lives. This is a very, very vulnerable spot for this man, and now you're going to shun it or and don't try to fix him either. And don't try to pry it out of him either. It needs to be in his time. He'll trust you. Build that safe home for him. He'll trust you when the time is right, but when he shares, hold it with him and then let him know how courageous and how strong he is in that moment, because he is at his weakest. He's in war against 500 men and he has no armor, no gun, no sword, no anything. And he is going into that battle putting everything out.
Okay, so welcome back from the little pause we took there. We're doing something that we've never done before, which is adding a third microphone midway through. So, Diana, thank you for coming over and doing this.
Thank you.
So I think it's important that we don't just talk about how spouses or significant others respond. We talk to someone who had to respond, right? And so I think we've hit that point in the conversation. And Justin, Micah, what you've talked about is so critical for people, right? Which is to recognize there is a real rejection. It's not just all in your head. This is really happening to men in real time every single day. So to you, Diana, how did you, he said you held it and you didn't try to fix him, but you began to kind of walk alongside him in this process. How did you end up on the 50% side that says, I'm here for this and I'm going to stay in it with you?
You know, when I go back to that moment and I remember him sharing it with me, some people ask me a lot, what was your first thoughts in those moments? And it really was, for me, it was, I couldn't believe how strong he was to share something that vulnerable with me, especially with as short of a time that we had known each other. That was really my first thought. I'd never had a man share something like that with me, but I think it was really by God's grace that I knew just to hold it. I didn't know all the trauma stuff that I know now, but in that moment, I remember feeling just sadness, just hurt for him, but also being so amazed at the courage that it took to share something like that deep and that personal with me. I wish that I could say that was true of every relationship, and it's, as we've shared Micah's story, we found so many situations where a spouse or a girlfriend or sometimes a parent or family member that did have that rejection or that you're lying or that ick, or so it's like, as much as I want to say, oh no, find these people and share your story, like there has to be some level of discernment with knowing is your person actually a safe enough person to share this with. One thing that I've learned is a lot of times when that rejection happens, usually it's about what they have not dealt with for themselves. So you sharing your story with me may have stirred something up in me that I just don't even want to look at. I don't want to deal with. And so a lot of times that either others' contempt, like I have contempt for you now from what you've shared, or self-contempt, like there's a shame root that can come to that. So I think being able to at least see it from that perspective of like, sometimes people can't handle it because they have just not been able to do work on the things that are their messy, hard places to work on. So I wish that there was just one clear, like, here's how to do this, step by step. I know the men like steps. Here's your steps. But it's messy and it's going to look a little bit different. But I think the message of hope that hopefully you are with someone who is a safe person. Even if you share and they're not, I just want to say there's still hope. Like there are safe places to be able to share and be able to heal, even if that ends up not being your person. I pray that it is the person that you're with, though.
Well, and if that person ultimately rejects you, and is just spouse especially, to me, how do you even move forward in that relationship at that point? I feel like you've lost the plot completely. If you cannot stand beside your spouse when they confess to you the most damaging, most horrifying, most vulnerable place they've ever been, and you say, I can't accept that, where do you go from there?
Well, it happened to you. You were the victim.
Yes.
You were a child.
You're not the perpetrator.
This wasn't a choice. And I think I'm in total agreement with what you just said, because that's not your person.
Right.
And again, going back to Diana's point, it more than likely is something with it's too close to home.
Yeah.
And so it may be their trigger as well. I mean, sitting down and having a real, true conversation about, did you go through something similar or whatnot? But in that state, if she would have icked me
Yeah.
and been just like, like it would have crushed me.
Yes. Well,
You
and it would
know?
have crushed you not just in your relationship with her, right?
Going
but it would have
forward.
crushed you with
Yeah.
every relationship
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
I can never tell anyone this,
Yeah.
right? Because how you respond
Yeah.
now becomes, in your mind, the blueprint for how everyone will.
My lie was true.
Yeah.
The lie that was in my head was true.
Right. Right. And wow, let's sit with that for a second. Right? Because the devil is a liar,
Yeah.
but not all lies are untrue.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes he's telling you something and it turns out, and that's why I was alluding to, like, there are times when you will confess things, your greatest weaknesses to someone who's with you because you're afraid you'll be rejected. And when you are, you're like, it wasn't a lie.
It is who I am.
I really am unlovable.
Yeah.
I'll never be loved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's like validation of the lie of the enemy. And we know people that we have a friend who, the day he shared his story, his wife left him. And it was, I mean, it's as gut-wrenching as his story is, the part where he was rejected there, actually, like, that piece breaks my heart as much as the abuse that he went through.
And his
Well,
fault.
he's re-abused
Yes.
at that point.
Yes. And I think there's also a lot of wives who want to know, they think something has happened because there's symptoms like addictions and anger and broken relationships. These are all symptoms and signs that there's something going on inside that has not been dealt with.
Yeah.
So also there's a lot of wives that want to know, how do I want to actually be that safe space for them. So I want to believe that is more the case than those who would do the rejection. And in those cases, it's like, make yourself as, like, do your own work first, so that you actually have the capacity to hold what it is. And again, going back to, like, my story, I had a lot of healing journey to go on myself, but at least in that point when he shared that with me, I had capacity because of what I had already gone through to be able to hold that space for him.
Yeah.
And thank God, because knowing that information at the very start of our relationship has been a game changer, because we had such a level of trust and intimacy out the gate. A foundational level first was that he knew Jesus, and I knew he was angry at God, but also it was like I could tell there was a desire for him to come back to that relationship. And I could see that in him. He just didn't even know what that path was going to look like. So that foundation had to be there. But then to know his deepest thing out the gate, and I know a lot of relationships that's not the case, and which is okay. You can still, like, that would have been a wall in our relationship this entire time. If it was 10 years in and then I found out, I don't think I would have been, like, there wouldn't have been the ick or anything, but it would have been like, it would have been this wall that was between us for this whole time that I couldn't figure out and I didn't know about.
Well, and now you have to figure out, like, so what have we been building?
Yes.
Right? Because I didn't know this, there's so much that's happening in your relationship that's based on a perception you had rather than the reality of the situation. So he actually did you an enormous favor,
Yeah.
right, by telling you this right
Yes.
away, because then you know how to navigate it. And again, I understand why men don't, as we talked about the fear of that rejection. But I think for men who are watching this, right, and if this is you and you're watching this and you say, oh, I'm holding this and I don't know how to tell my spouse, the thing you have to understand is, if you are, and it was something you said, if you are rejected in this, or if maybe it's not even a full rejection, maybe they just don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? So they kind of shut down on you. What you need to understand is that the lie that you are unlovable or no one can accept this is not true, right? The problem is now in your spouse or partner. Yeah. It's not in you. And because you said they need to do the work themselves to deal with their own issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes you're going to be rejected by someone who hasn't dealt with their healing. And therefore they don't have the capacity to deal with your healing.
Yes.
Right? So, Michael, let me go back for a second with you, because I think we've kind of left the story here at a certain place. You've got this moment, you're starting to find acceptance, you're starting to find acceptance in the bodybuilding world, and then you have to go back and to confront all of this again. Can you share with that?
Yeah, I got a phone call at the age of 19, and all that I had accomplished up to that point, from building bigger muscles and feeling I'm stronger, I instantly went to the broken child instantly with one call. And this detective said, Mike, I need you to come home. I need to talk to you about something. Initially, I was like, did I do something wrong? And I was a good guy. I wasn't getting in trouble like that. And my heart just sank when he told me, unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about the abuse that you went through. And I remember I'm driving and I'm shaking. It's uncontrollable amount of anxiety and panic. But I knew that I had to go and do this. And I show up at a table much like this, and he's a strong man. And all I kept thinking is, he's going to think how weak I am. And I start weeping. And the thing about a man who's gone through something similar like me, he will cry like the age that he was abused. And so I'm crying like a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, just weeping uncontrollably and shaking. And he's navigating me through this very, 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 like he wasn't aggressive with the way that he did it. He navigated me right through that. And I let him know what happened to me and all the details that I could go to at that point. And then I just remember him saying, man, you're really strong and thank you. But what happened after that brought something that was not shame, it was guilt. And I ended up finding out that two of the 7 boys were his children.
2 of the 7 boys who he had been abusing
Correct.
Over the years were his own sons.
Correct. And so that's when the guilt started coming in. The devil starts then bringing in guilt of going, why didn't you protect them?
Why didn't you grab that
Why
steering
weren't you
wheel?
strong enough? Why didn't you grab the steering wheel? And now they have gone through what you've gone through. And it crushed me. I mean, it was like you had the shame, you had the guilt, you had I can't share this with anyone. And it just, I have this fitness lifestyle that's keeping me alive, but I can't share this still, so it's like another layer. And then sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, guilt, shame, depression, all these things start seeping back in. And when you go through that, the one thing I'll say about people that have been sexually abused, they have to keep control of everything. And so, I wanted to build bigger muscles. I'll never get hurt ever again. But there's also the control level of things like if I go to a movie, I have to be on the edge of the end of the row. Wow. Everything has to be calculated in what I'm doing. It just, because your nervous system is so jacked. You're thinking of the worst constantly. You're hyper vigilant in everything that you're doing. Who I'm around, the situations I'm in, how can I get out if I need to? You're constantly in that state, and we hear this a lot with guys that go to war and come back, and you have PTSD. It's the same sort of trauma on the body, and so that's why we found with like fitness, bodybuilding, whatnot, a disciplined schedule allows you to have a control that helps you to heal, but to get to the wound, that alone won't help.
Right, your system is so dysregulated that you need the order in your life that you can control it.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, that doesn't heal you.
It doesn't heal me.
It helps to manage the trauma, right? The PTSD, because there is PTSD associated with that. But there's a whole other process into healing. Yeah. So how do you get to the healing part? All right, I can work out all day long, and I can get in great shape, and I can
make money, accolades, success, all of it.
At some point, you're going to have to confront what's going on.
Yeah, and God came in and did what God does. We're at a Carrie Job concert. One of my favorite songs comes on called Forever. And as she's at one of the heightened parts of the songs, which talks about the stone is rolled away, it's the resurrection of Christ, essentially. And I am weeping, man. Like it is on me. The Holy Spirit hits me, and I have 2 visions. The first vision is to see my children. God has always used visions in my life of what is to come. That's how He's spoken to me for many years, even when I was little. And the first one was to see our kids in Haiti. We have a school of kids in Haiti that we sponsored for many years. I got to go do that, and what a blessing that was to see those kids and hug those kids. The second, I was like, Lord, I am not doing this. There is no way I can do what you're asking me to do. And I knew it was from the Lord because of what I had seen. And I was on a stage sharing my story with a lot of people, sharing the deepest, hardest story that I had. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, where do I even start? I remember leaving and telling Diana, saying, this is the visions I held. And I remember her grabbing me and saying, we got this. We can do this. And I was like, I had trauma from counseling, so I'm not going to a counselor. I can't talk to anybody about this now. Diana did what Diana does as an amazing woman, and she created a safe home for me so that I could still go through my daily of being a coach and helping leaders and doing the things that I was doing, but coming home and being able to get vulnerable if I need to, someone to talk to, someone to be able to hold that. And God really navigated me down a path that was very unique, very organic, very one of one, that he knew me well enough of what I needed to do. I wake up very early in the morning, 3 a.m., 3:30 every single morning, and I get with the Lord. And in that pocket of time that I had started the healing journey, I had a piece of paper and a pencil. And I started writing down chronologically the things that I had gone through, the highs, the lows. And God really took me through piece by piece, big trauma, small trauma, in the healing that was necessary. And then I got the courage enough to tell some people in my life, some very close people, what happened to me, and they held the space really well. And that's really how the journey started. I was in the pocket of healing for 7 years. And a few years in, I had got this vision that it was like, I am not going to finish this until I'm at actual freedom, whatever that is, Lord, because I never want a moment or a time or an opportunity that a man shares with me and I can pour into them and it's not 100% authentic in saying, I know what freedom is. Mm-hmm. Any stage, any podcast, whatever, I know what true freedom is because I did the work. I took the courage, I took the step, and I got there. And I can help you too. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately what I did. And, everything that we do, and this is me and my beliefs, everything that we do can get us to pain tolerance. There's one path to freedom, and that's Jesus. It's the only one. He sacrificed his life for us so that we could surrender what it is we have to him.
So good. So good. You said Diana did what she needed to do, which was create a safe home. Mm-hmm. What did that look like, and how did you do that?
I think it was just giving him the space that he needed. When he was doing that writing and journaling, he was actually in my space. It's like my little nook, but it's a very quiet, private area of our house. And he would just go in and just literally what he said. He would write and write for however long he needed to, and once in a while I would come and check in and see what was going on, and just if he needed to share about something he was wrestling with, it was honestly just being able to be someone that was listening. And I wasn't perfect in it either. Like, there were days that this was a lot for me too. Like, I wrote this book and from his voice. And so having to hear the stories over and over and go into those moments, it was hard. And there were days that, I don't want anybody to think it was like, oh, it's just this perfect, it was messy too. Mm-hmm. And there were days that I was like, I don't have capacity for this right now. I can't hear this right now. But because our foundation of our relationship was on the rock of Jesus, because that is our strong foundation, we always knew, like, it was okay for me to have those days too and those moments too. And, once he got through that healing time, he created space for me to go through what I needed to too. But it was listening and just being able to give him the space that he needed. I think that was the most helpful. It wasn't trying to fix it. It was just like, what are you navigating today?
Yeah. And walking through that. You said you wanted to do the work to know what freedom is.
Yeah.
Are you there?
100% there.
How long have you been free?
And I'll tell you what freedom is now.
Okay.
The single thing that was the most difficult thing for me to share now is the only thing I want to share. The thing that the devil had the strongest grip now is the light that Jesus has given me. I always talk about Jesus died, and when he came back, he held scars to show what he had gone through. Now we can use our scars for a greater purpose. Because there are men out there, millions of men that are suffering, that just need an ounce of hope, a path that can get them out of the suffering that they're in. And so I had to stay in the space long enough to get to healing, to get to freedom, to be able to authentically speak into every man I stand in front of.
So good. So good. I'm sure you've seen there's a trending kind of quote on social media now, which is, God, why did you let me go through this? And he says, so that you know the way out when I send you back in to get others. Right? I feel that you know how to get out, right? To go back in to get other men. And I think we kind of have alluded to this throughout this conversation, but like as a culture, as a society right now, even as a church in America, we're not dealing with this, right? We're ignoring this. It's too messy. It's too hard, because dealing with it requires several things. One, it requires to recognize that churches have many times been a fostering ground for this kind of abuse, right? Let's be honest about it. Whether that's the Catholic Church, Protestant churches, systems that give a lot of access to kids because somebody says the right things.
Yes.
The fact that churches are many times filled with single parents and single moms who don't know where else to go, and they're trying to find their next husband or trying to find a community to lean on to help them, right? So a weakened family that then turns to this place. Look, we know historically, whether it's the Boy Scouts, it's the church, it's any kind of place where adults have access to children becomes a fostering ground for this kind of thing.
That's right.
I think we all know that now, but what we're still not doing very well is addressing it and saying, so what are we doing about that?
Yeah.
Right? And how are we protecting that? And I think the biggest thing, this kind of brings us full circle, that it starts with is we have to recognize that families staying together is the number one way you're going to prevent this. Number one.
Yep.
Unless, of course, the father himself is the abuser.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Which was the case in the case of your abuse.
Yeah.
But
Or the mother.
or the mother.
So we always look at males as the predator,
That's
and the
true.
more
A
that
lot of
we've learned in
females.
this space, I mean, it's 30%.
Yeah.
Except in our society, it's like, oh man, you got with an older woman, and it's sexual abuse. A 25-year-old with a 9-year-old is almost highlighted sometimes if it's the boy.
Right.
Yep.
That's sexual abuse.
Yeah.
That boy is going to be damaged forever.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get the healing necessary. It goes both ways. And it needs to be clear that, your kids need to be protected. You need to know who is with these children.
Yeah.
There always needs to be 2 adults.
Yeah.
Always 2 adults that are around these kids.
There's some movie, and I don't even know what the movie is, but I keep seeing like clips from it on, because Instagram and TikTok will have like clips from these movies. And there's some movie, it looks like it's a 90s movie, early 2000s movie, and it's basically about this teacher who's having an affair with like her 11, 12-year-old boy student, right? To the point where I guess the climax of the thing is like they get caught during the school play having sex, like the curtain falls down. And I'm watching this thinking, how is this a movie?
Yeah.
Right? If you reversed the role and it was this, 30-year-old man having sex with a 12-year-old girl, people would be like, this is disgusting and
This
a
is
crime.
the issue with society.
Right, but it's, as you said, it's inverted
It
where
is.
it's like, well, almost like, I think even, I want to say that Trump had a statement the other day where he was asked something about, maybe it was an old clip, but about, female teachers and young students that they had abused. And his comment was something like, well, I don't think any of them are complaining. I don't think any of the boys are complaining, right? There is a mentality,
Sure.
Yeah.
right? It's not just him. There's a mentality that sees it that way. That, well, if the boy's not complaining about it, then what's the crime? Well, it is a crime, and it should be a crime because it is abuse, as you said.
It is. I mean, the boy is still having a climax, right? So there's this positive thing to it, and in our society, it's like, oh man, you got to hook up with an older woman. What that looks like. What people aren't thinking about is the psychological damage that it does. And what trajectory that child will end up going on after that. Now it's like, how many women can I hook up with? It becomes this whole thing. Pornography. We haven't even touched on that, how damaging that is for an actual legit relationship down the road. Then how am I going to be a father when that's what I was taught?
Right. No, that's very true. The other thing is we were talking about how some stories are not as, I don't want to say dramatic, that's not the right word, but they aren't as long as your story in terms of the abuse, right? And we were talking about this in between while we were changing cameras. But there are men who have had one thing happen.
Yes.
And I was sharing with you guys, a dear friend of mine, had this happen when he was 12 years old, right? He's in a public restroom at the mall, and he's walking past the stall, and this man pulls him inside and molests him and leaves, and he never sees him again. And that was his sole abuse experience, right? It didn't happen from a family friend. It didn't happen from a parent. It was a complete stranger at a mall. And for decades, he's been stuck in this place, dealing with this abuse that happened one time at the hands of a stranger who he has no idea who this person is. And one of the things I shared with you, and I would like for you guys to elaborate on this, because this is a big problem too, is that he carries guilt for it because there was also arousal that came as a result of this abuse. And that is incredibly damaging because people then are like, well, then did I enjoy the abuse? Was it really abuse if I liked it? Maybe this is just who I am. And so you struggle with 1,000 things that you're not being able to process. How common is that in the conversations you guys are having with people?
So incredibly common, and especially for both men and women, especially for men, the idea of the fear that I was complicit in my abuse is something that silences so many men, because God designed our bodies with arousal systems. That they are a natural part of how God designed us and created us. And so when your body is aroused, that is actually a biologically accurate, normal thing to happen when you are touched in a certain way. These are normal responses in the body. And when that gets tangled up with, oh, so that must mean that I wanted and desired this thing that happened to me, that is, it's very confusing to unwire those. It's a place where the enemy can come in. Oh, that's one of his favorite places. Let me get in there. You wanted it. You liked it. And the damage that it does, not just physically, mentally, spiritually to any person, but especially with men, it can ruin their lives. Your friend's situation, that is actually very extreme. Like, there are levels of severity to abuse for sure. That is an extreme event to be pulled into something by a stranger. There are men that have the shame, although there's levels of severity and like a length of time, maybe longer for healing for some things than the other, the shame that it can attach to even being touched in a certain way or looked at in a certain way. These things are still on that spectrum of sexual abuse that shame can attach and get in there and cause so much havoc and so much damage. And so I think that's something that needs to be talked about too, and just way broader.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And the shame prevents people from healing.
Yes.
And what I think a lot of men don't recognize also is that holding all this stuff inside, and now you get married and you have your family, it's as if your family is a tree, right? There's all this rot down in the root system, and it will come up into your family. You're trying to do your best to hold it back. You're trying to do your best so that it never exposes itself, but it does.
Yes.
And it comes out in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, the tree will eventually fall down, you know. I mean, it just will. You have the foundation of the Lord, obviously, but the man then trying to cover the family, and he can't even cover himself. Yeah. You know, he's not at a healed place.
Yeah.
It will always come out. Yeah. If it has not been dealt with, and there are some things that people don't actually have access in their memory to, because if things happen to you very young, your brain protects you by holding those, like, it will put it in a compartment. So there's a lot of people that are like, something might have happened, I don't even have access to those memories. And when it's very young and it's implicit memory and it's not even explicit memory, but the symptoms will still show up. They will still look like the anger, the pornography, like so many men who are in jail. Like there's like a huge percentage of them that have gone through something. Overworking, chasing after accolades, the success.
More money,
I gotta get more. I
more
gotta get
time
more.
working.
I have to
so
prove that I'm enough. I gotta prove that I'm enough. Like, so success, extremely successful people. A lot of times, you know, whether there's some level of trauma in their story that has been untended, because it's this, I'm running around still trying to fill this cup up and looking for who's going to fill my cup, what's going to fill my cup, so I feel okay.
Well, you're right. We people on the outside of that will say you're a workaholic, but you're not a workaholic, right? You're the alcoholic is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So the holic part is probably correct, but it's not because you're addicted to work. You're addicted to hiding.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? You need to hide from whatever this thing was. Listen, that was my story for so long in my life. At one point, I was working 5 jobs, right, and had 5 kids, and it was just like, do everything you can to focus everything you can on building something. You're going to be something, and you're going to escape whatever was behind you, and you're going to move forward. And it works. It works for a long time until it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And then everything starts to crumble around you, and you have all this dysregulation in your family, and you're like, my goal was to protect my family from all this. Yeah. And instead, you see it now coming up, and it's like, if it's undealt with, eventually it will be dealt with.
We always talk about it serving you at one point, and now it no longer serves
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
Or
Well,
even-
now it enslaves you.
It's
Yeah.
it destroys you.
It's when what you're designed to keep you safe, what was adaptive, has now become maladaptive because now it's destroying you. Whether that's work, whether it's food. For a lot of people, that's food. It's the thing that gave me that hit of comfort, of calmness, and now I'm overweight and my health is deteriorating, and that's deteriorating everything. So it's
The other thing is, I feel like in my life for a long time, it was building and creating compartments, right? So, and I believed a lie, which was you can keep a compartment over here of your family, your wife, your kids, and your work life, and then you have maybe your career over here, and then you have all your other stuff over here. And if I can keep all these things separated, I can be the manager of these things. I can determine it. Doesn't really work.
That compartment always spills over into the other two, one way or another.
Yeah.
You know, it just does.
Yeah.
And so when a wound is untended and unhealed, it will manifest in some sort of way. Again, I didn't go through the drugs and the alcohol because of what I witnessed as a child, but it came out in other forms.
Yeah.
You know, and not being able to celebrate, not being able to like even understand the gratitude of what I had actually achieved and what I was actually doing because I was still trying to protect him.
Well, you're just running on a treadmill,
Yeah.
right? So you can't actually enjoy the process. You don't enjoy anything because you're trying to get somewhere. But the truth is, you don't know where you're trying to get to.
You have no idea.
Right? You're just running as fast as you can, and you're exhausted by it. And it's, again, the fruit's not there in your life, and then you're like, but as long as I keep running, eventually I get it. You're never
Running
gonna
in the dark
yeah, into
with no
walls.
light.
Yeah, face first into walls.
Yeah.
It's an incredible story. The book.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book? Where can people get it? Is it out?
Yeah, The Breaker Mission, it just recently came out, thebreakermission.com, Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. You can get a hard copy there as well. We navigate not only my story, and like she had mentioned, she wrote the story. She was the only one that actually could. Yeah. And we dive into my story, but more importantly, the hope and the freedom, because I wanted to write a story that not was just trauma dumping and here is this horrific story and look at where I'm at now. It's a real guide for people, men, women out there that are suffering, because it was created for the man, but a woman will read it and also take a lot from it. And then also the other component of the person who loves this person who's been abused but doesn't know what to do and where to go and how to do that. We have resources. We're building right now kind of a hub as God is connecting all this together of a place to go that has a tremendous amount of resource for men, for women, for kids.
Amazing, amazing. Micah, Diana, thank you so much. Incredible stuff. I guess as the last thing here, where can people follow you? Where can they get more? Besides the book on Amazon, but where else can they follow you?
They can follow us, our names, just our names. You can find us anywhere. I have a very unique name, so I'm the only one that I know of so far. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.
And we'll put all those links in the bottom of the description. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.